Cheers, everyone. Talking today about the Enlightenment training course coming up that's going to start in just 3 days, and also diving in a little bit to quantum immortality. So, to start off, let's jump on quantum immortality first. So, from a energetic standpoint, we are all energy, and we are basically an excitation in an even bigger quantum field than we can perceive because we are within the field and we feel like we are the masters of the material world, which is funny. So we are energy. We are also non-local. Our consciousness is non-local. Part of our consciousness does reside within the physical form, and part of our consciousness has the capacity and the ability to transcend the physical form and go other places, experience other things than strictly the three-dimensional space that we feel like we inhabit most of the time. So we're energetic and we're non-local. There's also some elements of human-centric view to quantum physics and quantum mechanics, and also quantum entanglement. We perceive these things at the subatomic level, but we're not recognizing that at scale that we are also part of these systems. Greetings, Ada. Good to see you. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining. So, one thing I like to say is there's nothing stagnant or forever in eternity. Eternity is a continually evolving space based on what we're experiencing in this moment. And that's collective. So based on everything that the universe is experiencing, nothing is forever in the infinite. And so everything is constantly changing, constantly in flux, as we are on the bleeding edge of creation. We are the tip of the spear of the universe having a conscious experience, just like so many other aspects of this experience are. So from that standpoint, when we transition from a physical life, a physical experience, we can look at it like Gestalt, where the sum of the parts is greater than the whole. The whole is greater than the sum of the parts. So the whole, us, capital U, us, is greater than the parts that we can dissect, that we can bisect, that we can take apart. So from that standpoint, the physical form ends because that's entangled, that is part of and meshed with this three-dimensional reality that we experience. And there's a part of us that continues. There's a part of us that goes on. And so the way I describe this is an individual can have multiple experiences within a single consciousness over what we perceive as time, even though all of these lives, all of these things are happening simultaneously. Everything is happening right now. But because of the function of our three-dimensional world to come here, to forget, to have an experience, to experience the contrast, the highs, the lows, and everything in between, and have the freedom to do whatever we want with that, that creates the reality that we experience, good, bad, or other. So from a standpoint of us being non-local and us being primarily energetic, which is expressed functionally in the physical form, that's where the immortality comes in. And we're getting into a little bit to thermodynamics, where energy can't be created or destroyed, it can only change form. And so we release the energy of the physical form, we return to the energy of the non-physical, but the consciousness remains because of zero-point energy, because of collective consciousness, because of quantum entanglement. So from that standpoint, really, quantum immortality is the thought of, it sums it up with the law of one. There's also a great story, short story that the author who wrote The Martian created. It's called The Egg. It's been produced in an illustrated form on YouTube. You can go to Galactinet to find the original text copy. But it's really a pulled back view, recognizing that we are an individual signature of a much greater energetic source that really is who and what we are, and we're just individual expressions of that. So when we return to our source, when we return to the oneness, when we return to love, once we've finished with a life experience, that is the immortality that we're talking about here, where we are constantly evolving, constantly transforming on this journey that is, there is a great geologic expression of no vestige of beginning, no prospect of an end. And this Scottish geologist was looking at this one place in the Isle of in the Scottish Isles, and he was seeing a lot of different formations within the geology. And what he was recognizing is the Earth goes through regenerative cycles. We as individuals go through regenerative cycles. We as collective consciousness continually expand and regenerate and continue on because we are part of that network. We're part of that quantum field. So we are a particle in an even bigger field than we can perceive. We are temporary. We are very transient in this human experience. When you think of human life is anywhere from 60 to 100 and something years old, that's, less than a blink of an eye when we're talking cosmic or universal time. And so we're here having these micro experiences, these flashes of particles and waves, and we interact with each other in the same capacity. And what we're doing is we are creating a funnel of information, a funnel of experience that goes through us to the collective, to the universal, and it just adds to the equation of knowledge, adds to the equation of knowing. Another really great way that we can look at it from a more understandable standpoint is Isaac Asimov's short story called The Last Question. And if you're interested, DM me and I'll send you a graphic treatment that they've done to the short story. It really goes a long way to really dive into that quantum immortality concept. And it really is a pulled back view because we are having a very hyper-personal, very monumental experience in the physical world. And quantum time doesn't operate by the same, it doesn't have the same governors on it that our three-dimensional space does. And so it can take, a quantum evolution can be billions of years where we are continually evolving and contributing to that evolution. And so that's where we get into this magnitude of scale that can be challenging for a lot of us to really wrap our heads around. But if you do a meditation where you pull back from the individual and you go to your neighborhood and you go to your town and you go to your region and you go to your continent, and then you go and you keep pulling back the vision, you see Earth, you pull even back, you see the solar system, keep going, you're outside the Milky Way, keep going, you're moving through the distant galaxies, keep going, you're beyond the edge of the universe. That's the scale of quantum time that we're talking about. And so it can feel a little tenuous, it can feel a little disconcerting when we're talking about this quality of ever-evolving immortality, just as we are in the process of ever-evolving consciousness individually and collectively. So that's really where quantum immortality comes in. We are energy, we are non-local, and we have the capacity to not only transform and dictate our outer world based on our inner state, the qualities that we hold within, but we also can do the same in reverse to expand our consciousness. Let go of a lot of the weight we've been carrying with us that gets in the way of these understandings, of these awarenesses. Release the emotional and energetic trauma that we carry with us that keeps us in a noisy resonance chamber, this echo chamber, as opposed to getting clear, quiet on the inside and balanced so we can hear our signal. So many of us are disconnected from our signal that we're constantly looking for others outside of us to define our answer, to give us what we feel is the truth. But the only really way to get to an internal capital T truth is for us to experience it internally. And the best way I found to do that is clear out the junk, get quiet on the inside, connect with our breath as our guide, to release, to transform, to explore, and to inquire and to question. We've got all of the answers on the inside. It just takes a few steps in order to get us to a place of being able to hear that signal through all the noise. And these steps include breath work, whole brain or brain synchronization techniques and exercises, and guided visualization with the intention of a specific outcome. So if our intention is to get an answer to a why, if we're asking a question of our higher self or of our source, of our higher spirit, and we are in kind of the dis-ease of life, we're not going to hear the signal. We're going to be distracted by the noise. So getting clear, getting quiet, getting peaceful on the inside is the way that we can really tap into this quantum immortality and recognize that all of this is play. All of this out here, the answer is inside of us, exactly. And that answer is going to be similar for most, but very individual based on our life. And that's really the key is quiet the external noise, use practices that get us to a quiet space on the inside, and then everything is there. Then we have much easier time connecting with our wholeness, connecting with our source, connecting with the true us behind all of the conditions and programs and beliefs and shoulds and need tos and inputs from other people, behind the entanglements that we get into based on our trauma bonds. Those are all things that keep us separate from ourselves and attached to things outside of us for our health, for our happiness, for our salvation, for our security, for our safety, and for our sense of self, really. So the self comes from within and is expressed outwards, as opposed to what most of the time we do is we source our self based on other people's opinions of us, which we're going to get 1,000 different answers if we ask 1,000 different people. Yeah, believing in ourselves is one of the keys, and loving ourselves. That's another big one, because we get disconnected from self-love at an early age because of unintended manipulation, sometimes intended manipulation. Sometimes, most of the times it's from the messages we get outside of ourselves that are creating these false beliefs about ourselves and our world that we carry with us in life. Because especially the first 7 years, that's where our programs are created. So if it occurred within the first 7 years, that is going to be the majority of our operating system and the safety programs our system runs. And then our system generalizes the safety programs and intensifies the symptoms until we inform our system that we are hearing the signal. The challenge is that so many of us just try and stuff it down or ignore it or run away from it with substances, with meds, with pharmaceuticals, with antidepressants, with media, with any number of things, and it just keeps building up within. And then we end up in an even greater state of dis-ease. So we are all eternal. We are all immortal in the sense that our energy lives on after the physical experience ends, and we will have a different hyper-unique, hyper-personal experience with whatever the next step is. We won't have quite the same components that create this consciousness in this lifetime. It's kind of like, each life we get a puzzle, and each life that puzzle has some different shaped pieces, some different size pieces. Maybe the puzzle is, it's a different picture that we're creating, but it's always from that standpoint, we can look at it as there's always a puzzle, there's always pieces, but what the puzzle is when we put all the pieces together and the makeup of the pieces is going to be different every experience we have. The more, rising tide lifts all ships. The more that we get centered, grounded, and at a higher resonance within ourself, the more we are moving beyond self-awareness and taking these steps towards self-realization, self-fulfillment, self-enlightenment. We are spreading that and resonating that out into the world. So every single step that we take in that positive direction not only improves our lives, but it does impact everyone around us from an electromagnetic and quantum entanglement standpoint. All right, so quantum immortality. We're all immortal. We are all immortal. This is all a play. This is all a first-person video game that we are in control of from the inside out. And the more that we can recognize that and stay in a peaceful, present, non-attached place, and that's not detached, it's non-attached. There's there's an important difference, the more that we are going to be able to more successfully navigate relationships, our own internal space, and the rest of the world. So if you're interested in more, reach out. We've got tools, we've got tips, we've got trainings that are available, in addition to our one-on-one sessions where we really unpack the subconscious load that we carry with us. And all of this work, where it may be unfamiliar to some, is really coming at the human equation from its core, from its foundation. And that is the place that we can make rapid and massive shifts and changes in a very short amount of time if we are ready for the change. If we're not ready for the change, that's resistance, and resistance is going to get in the way as much as attachment does to our own reconciliation, our own expansion. So if you're interested in taking some steps, just identify, what am I attached to in life? What do I feel like I need for my safety, my satisfaction, my happiness, my joy, my peace? If it's things outside of ourselves, maybe it's time to look at how we can cultivate that on the inside, put our own oxygen mask on before anybody else, and come to a place of more wholeness within, so that we can then broadcast that wholeness out into the world. The other side of it is, just slipped my mind. Anyway, yeah, reach out if you want more info. All right, Quantum Consciousness Training, Enlightenment Training starts this Sunday, October 8th. We're taking everything in the advanced steps, advanced practices in My Guy on the Ninth Floor, and we are embedding them into life. We're going to be not only doing knowledge transfer, diving into the energetic reality and how quick and easy it is to shift out of balance into dissonance, which really affects every aspect of life. We're going to get into the practices of radical honesty, radical acceptance, radical empathy, radical balance, and radical freedom and responsibility. And these are all signposts. These are all steps on our consciousness journey from awareness to ultimate freedom. And we're all at different places, but these steps, these tools, these practices, these integrative practices will get you back on track with your life. They are going to get you in a place that you are less impacted and affected by those outside of you. And in addition to the knowledge transfer, the information, the practices, and the balances, we're going to be doing subconscious belief transformation, belief repatterning. We're going to be doing stress release and trauma transformations as well. And we're going to be I'm going to be guiding quick and easy ways that you can shift out of a stress response. And so if you're interested, it's going to be a 6-week training. We're going to meet once a week on Sundays for 2 hours. And that 2 hours is going to include getting grounded, balanced, and centered. It's going to include a guided transformation and activation, which can be connecting with inner knowing, connecting with our source. It can be a stress release or transformation about a past, present, or future stressor. It's going to be belief repatterning with some core, powerful, positive beliefs that uplift us and help to support us in life. And if they're, depending on the makeup of the training group this time, we may get into some more energy training work, training how to recognize subtle energies within the body, training on how to connect with inner knowing, connect with guides, connect with our source. And so we're going to be doing, it's going to be a lot. It's going to be a 6-week integration practice. And if anyone has any questions on this live, please just let me know. Just go ahead and type it in. Or if you would like to join and have a conversation, just hit that join live button, invite to join, or request to join, and we can actually have a conversation. So let's see what else we got with the training. So from a lot of people are like, well, what are you talking about? Enlightenment training, quantum consciousness training. Another way we can think about it is Christ consciousness training, recognizing at a radical standpoint that nothing anyone else has anything to do with us. Everyone is dealing with their own collective issues and experiences that have led them to expressing themselves the way they are. We are not even our own thoughts, emotions, beliefs. So getting to an understanding and an integration of these knowings is a powerful way to get our hands back on the wheel of this powerful earth suit, this powerful biomachine that we are inhabiting and that we are animating. Because about 95 to 98% of the time, your hand is not on the wheel of your vehicle. Your subconscious takes over because it runs programs of things it's experienced. And all our physical form knows is what it's experienced. It doesn't know the expansive quality of our quantum consciousness. So the way that we get a better handle on our car is to actually use our entire physical system to navigate our internal space, to reconcile past traumas and the weight that we carry with us, and also to navigate our external space. And the external, funny enough, is actually our thoughts, our emotions, and our reactions as well, because things we experience on the inside of this physical form are still external from our energetic reality. So it's some consciousness and awareness tweaks to the who and what we are, getting even behind I am. We're talking about getting beyond the hero's journey as a concept of life. Ada, it's interesting. It's not controlling our thoughts is an interesting concept. It's not so much about controlling thoughts as it is being curious and inquiring about the thoughts that we have. Anytime we try to control anything, it generally ends up not going that great over long enough time. Let's look at our current situation in the political and cultural climate in the United States. Let's look at the same in France before the French Revolution, different times in the Roman Empire, different times throughout the world. Control never works over a long enough timeline. It definitely can work in the short term, but over a long enough timeline, control doesn't really work internally or externally. So then what do we do with all of these intrusive thoughts? What do we do with all of these negative thoughts about ourselves or the world? Well, the first is to recognize when we are having those thoughts. It's a reaction within the system. It's not a signal from our source or our inspiration or our imagination. So anything negative we experience on the inside is going to be something that is contributed to by a program of life. So it's more about observing the thought, getting behind the thought form or the expression of idea or thought within the body, and holding it up and just saying, is this thought, well, first, is this thought mine, or did I get this from somebody else? If we've gotten it from somebody else, then we can just disrupt it. There's a number of ways we can physiologically disrupt and shift out of a reactive state. Happy to share those if you're interested. But it's a yes and. So for me, it started with awareness, and then I guess the control came with the disruption. So we're just Thanks, B. I appreciate it. Yeah, check out the book. That's the best place to start if you've read things like The Four Agreements, you've read Eckhart Tolle, you've read Joe Dispenza, maybe Ram Dass, Lynn McTaggart, Louise Hay. If you're familiar with any of those, check this sucker out, because this brings everything into a single handbook, and it extends kind of where things have left off. So when I was on the come up with a lot of this, I've been in this space over the last 20 years or so. The prevailing wisdom I was hearing as far as transforming things was, well, meditate up to 8 hours a day, or say your mantra up to 800 times a day. And that just didn't work. I'm living a life. I'm working a job. I'm with my family. I don't have time. I don't have an interest in doing that. So I was like, there's got to be some faster, easier, more efficient way to get rid of all of this stuff. So I've been practicing since 2016 some pretty powerful subconscious transformation tools and techniques, emotional transformation techniques, and then I've created a few processes on my own that I've had clients say they're like Reiki on steroids, because it is an energy transformation that really takes in multiple components, and we're pre and post testing symptomatic expression, so we're getting a verifiable differentiator between where we started with the intensity of an emotion or a symptom, and then where we get to on the other side. Focus on something we can change positively. Yeah, that's actually a good one. It's actually one of the tools in the training, and a lot of it is awarenesses, brain games, mental exercises. So if we have a negative thought about ourselves or another, catch it is the first key, and then flip it. So if it's, oh, I'm a piece of shit, I'm no good, it's like, boom, flip, nope, I caught that. Do a disruption, because if you try and counter a negative with a positive, but you're in a dissonance, you're in a negative electromagnetic state, then it's just going to be like Teflon. Any positive thought's just going to bump right off that. So that's where disruption comes in, and it's so important to disrupt a negative physiological expression, allowing our system to return to stasis, to return to a balance, which most of us don't ever get in life. And then from that place, then we can expand on flipping it to the positive. Can meditation be taught? I think meditation can be practiced. I think a meditative state is a natural state of being. So the way that I like to approach meditation is the same way I like to approach life, any type of interpersonal communication. When we're in meditation, we are in communication with ourself, with our source, with our wisdom center. But a lot of times the noise of life is still very present. And I like to say, if you meditate first thing in the morning, and you meditate, when you get off work, we're not informing our system of any other state of being other than hypervigilance, alert and aware. So do a positive disruption and some breath work before you meditate. And then you're not going to sit stuck in a 4-lane intersection in rush hour traffic for 20 or 30 minutes before you get to a kind of quiet-ish mind space. So I think with meditation, what is the goal? So what is your personal goal with meditation? Is it to connect with an inner knowing? Is it to get relief from a stressful situation? Is it to gain insight and awareness of patterns? Is it to gain guidance in as far as what the best next step is for me based on my goals? So a lot of these factors enter into practicing meditation. So for me, with meditation, it always starts with an intention. What is my intention with this time? And the best way I can get the most out of this time is to be physiologically balanced before going into a meditation. And also, if you meditate in a whole brain posture. When we're in a whole brain posture, we are in a balanced hemisphere state in our brain. We're not in a dominant hemisphere reactive state. And that's just going to enhance and energize our meditation as well. Much needed. It is much needed these days. Seems like everyone is losing themselves within. There's not necessarily a roadmap to navigate this internal space. Yeah, there is. Check this book out. I'm biased, but it's amazing. It really brings everything that has been expressed and identified and researched and proven over the last 100 years or so, and it includes and incorporates all of the indigenous processes and practices and ancient knowledge and wisdom that has been brought through the millennia. And it takes the next step as far as, what do we do now? What do we do with this information? How do we make this functional? Boom. Check the book out. Dive in. I've got live support hours every week just to drop in for anybody that's got some questions. So get the book, integrate the practices, and drop in if you need an assist or some support with that. So the way we're losing ourselves within is because we're conditioned, especially in the West, to not experience life from the neck down. Only stay in your head. Everything we can outthink. No, we need to outfeel. So we've got 3 primary nodes within our system that are consciousness guides. So we've got our mental space, our heart space, and our gut space. And they're not mutually exclusive, and they're completely integrated within the system. And trauma and pain is actually stored at the cellular level within the fascia of the body. So we have to release to get relief, and we have to move through in order to transform the condition pattern of the trigger. in my experience and diving into this, that's the only way we do it. Because we've been so cut off from our body, that's why we're reaching for things outside of ourselves as an answer. And we're never going to find the answer outside. And there's been a couple comments to that effect. It's within. In this modern world, we all need meditation. Agree. And meditation can be anything. I meditate while I'm prepping dinner, cutting vegetables. I meditate while I'm cleaning my car. I meditate while I'm going for a walk. You can meditate in rush hour traffic. It just depends on the practice. Like I mentioned, it's just practice. So the more reps we get, the more we can turn anything into mindfulness, the more we can turn anything into present awareness, and enjoy a quality of meditative state anywhere at any time. My goal is to tackle stress. Every time I try to shut my brain down, more thoughts keep coming up. Yeah. So that's the challenge, is the more, it's like the more we try, the more challenging it gets. Anaz, give me some examples of how you are trying to shut your brain down. What are some tools that you're using? And then I have some options I can offer you. Reading. I meditate with a notebook because I'll get downloads, I'll get hits, I'll get awarenesses, I'll get knowings. I've got a little notebook right next to my bed. My notes app on my phone that's my main the main thing I use to jot insights, awarenesses, things I want to remember. And so the more that we can get these things out of our brain, out of our mind, the more space we have to invite more in. When we try to entertain too many things in our conscious mind, it falls apart. Too many plates spinning, too many pots on the stove, and it ends up not working. Because our conscious mind has limited processing capacity. From a computational standpoint, conscious mind operates at about 40 bits per second. Excuse me. We're good in conversation. We're good in presentation. We're good with focused tasks. If we try and do too much at once, we get stressed, we get frayed at the edges, we get worn too thin, we start burning the candle at both ends, and everything falls apart. So I don't care who you are, you're not good at multitasking. And it's not necessarily a badge of honor to think that we are. Multitasking can actually be a stress response, just like grinding, striving, trying, crushing it. These are stress responses to our external environment, which is completely disconnected from our natural state of being. For the last, I saw some research, only modernly, and as far as the modern human, since capitalism really took over, and capitalism is for capitalists and no one else, and recognizing that can help navigate this post-capitalist system we're in. But it was estimated that late 1700s, early 1800s, on average, humans worked 45 to 50% of the year, and at most 4 to 6 hours a day during that half year of work, with ample breaks all throughout the day. Nobody, on a natural cycle, nobody worked in the midday. We followed more of a natural pattern. And so it's been this incremental kind of, boiling a frog where the heat just keeps getting turned up for the last 150 years or so, is that those within power are squeezing as much as they can out of the productive workforce without much care for that workforce, for the humanity that is creating their wealth and success. So again, everything is eventual. Now we're getting to this breaking point within this ism that we're currently in, and recognizing it's unsustainable, especially with the intercedence and the overbearingness and the control of central banks. And you might not know, in the United States, we are on our 4th central bank. The Federal Reserve is actually the 4th central bank that this country's experienced. And every time a central bank has come in, they were dismantled by leadership at the time who was very closely aligned with the people. Unfortunately, at this point in our evolution, the leadership, the book is available in India. That's huge. That's awesome. I haven't been able to do translations yet, unfortunately. So I am looking to be able to translate into as many different languages as I can. It's a work in process. So if you are abroad and it is available, I'd love for you to grab it and let me know. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know if it works for you. Fair warning: it does start off. The very first page does jump into the deep end of the pool, talking about an experience I had where I thought about suicide when I was 18, and so I always joke. I didn't name the book nor the company lightly. Radical Enlightenment is really a radical departure from the fears and the controls that so many of us experience, and coming back to that wholeness that's really been there within as an opportunity for us to connect to. So going back to modern society, this 40, 60, 80-hour work week is completely artificial, completely fabricated, and really out of sync not only with our natural body's rhythm, but also out of sync with nature in itself. So finding a healthy work-life balance, it's going to be hyper-individual. And kind of ironically or counterintuitively, the more that I have allowed myself to get quiet and slow down and not compete and just fly my flag and have my hands on my own ship, the more time I found I have, the more peace I found I'm able to experience, and the more space I have to take right action, aligned action based on my goals, based on moving towards that fulfillment. And if you're interested in becoming more fulfilled in life, it's the nexus of three main things and two primary components. One, what is a natural talent that you have? What is something that comes easy to you that might not be as easy to somebody else? That's up to us to identify individually. It can be anything. It can be music, elder care, child care, special needs care, acting, art, finance, plumbing, woodworking, carpentry. It can literally be anything. So identifying what comes naturally easy to us, and then also what lights us up. What are we interested in? So when we pair something that comes easily or something that comes naturally to us with a three-dimensional interest, something that interests us in the world, and we cover that with a thin veneer of, will people want this thing? That's the junction of fulfillment. For me personally, I knew I wanted to be a designer since I was in 7th grade. Actually, first grade is when it started. So part of the journey is finding out what we're interested in, because we don't always get those opportunities when we're little. A lot of times it's things we have to do, we need to do, we should do, that keep us fixed and finite in life. I just try to sit down, eyes shut before I go to bed. First, I tried to focus on my exhale and inhale, which didn't work for me. Tried to listen to a few Indian classical music, didn't last long. So, Anaz, what I would say is add a disruption before you sit down, before you go to bed. If you go to the radicalenlightenment.com, you scroll down about 2/3 of the way on the homepage, and you can download a daily disruption practice, which is guided. It's got QR codes on it. So it's a PDF download. You can print it out, or it also comes with the links to the videos for guidance. So if you're finding that the mental space is a challenge, do a disruption, a physiological disruption, which includes breath work, brain balancing practices, and intention. And it is. It's when we boil it down, the equation's pretty simple, but getting to that place of integrating these practices and adopting and onboarding them can be where the challenge comes in. So do an intentional positive electromagnetic disruption before you sit down to meditate. And there's some additional breathing techniques that if we have high energy, we can use to really calm our system down. These include box breathing, where we do a same count, inhale, hold, exhale, hold. So you can inhale for 5, hold for 5, exhale for 5, hold on empty for 5. If you do that breathing, that'll help to regulate your limbic system, your stress response. You can also do opposite nostril breathing. and that is from a yogic background. So if you are familiar with opposite nostril breathing, that's another one you can do. I personally enjoy a more vigorous, intense disruption. So a lot of the breathwork practices I've created or I recommend come with kind of a hit it hard caveat to them. So when we are in a negative physiological state, it can be like a dog having a bead on something outside where it's just hyper focused, it's not moving. Maybe the dog's got a little bit of a growl going on. But if we disrupt the focus, then it's like, and we go back to just that peaceful presence. So the positive disruption is so important. If you just so if you download that, you'll get the tools for a positive morning disruption and a positive evening disruption. And if you bookend your days with those, you're going to find more peace, more presence, more balance that you can experience throughout the day. Siddharth. I'm still trying to figure out what I'm interested in. I'm 34. So this is another oxymoron, or another thing that's not real. There is no timeline. There is no race that we're competing against. There is no I'm 34, I haven't figured it out yet. We can feel that because of societal pressures, family pressures, which become internal pressures. So the way that we get beyond that, the way that I've gotten beyond that is recognizing that I am in a lifelong marathon. I'm not in a sprint. And I can take a nice, steady, slow pace. And there is no there to get to either. That's another misnomer. Most of the times when we achieve something or we get something, it's not the thing we thought it was going to be that brings us the fulfillment, the peace, the whatever thing we're looking for. So recognizing that the journey, the path is the goal. There is no end. And there's no timeline for when we get where we're going, whatever that is for us individually. I like to use some examples from those that we perceive as achieving some success in the world. So Vera Wang, a famous wedding gown and fashion designer, she didn't design her first dress until she was in her 50s. I think it was Morgan Freeman, Samuel L. Jackson, and a couple other actors didn't get their start until their 40s and 50s, or maybe didn't find success until they were kind of going through some stuff. What's his name? One of the main characters on The Office. He was in New York and he was working in a restaurant and doing everything he could to book gigs, whatever it was, whether it's on stage or in a commercial. Nothing was coming through, and he was ready to pack it all in and give up and go home. And he was just about 3 years in, and he was talking to his mom, and his mom said, "You know what? Give it to the end of the summer, and if you still haven't got anything, then reconsider, and then we can see, consider what else you might want to do. But at least, give it a little bit more time." And within that time frame, that's when he booked The Office, and his career exploded and took off. So releasing attachment to the outcomes, releasing judgment in comparison to where we perceive we are at or where we perceive anyone else is at, are some of the most powerful practices that we can onboard to lighten the intensity of this experience. Sometimes we get to our 70s when we finally figure it out. Sometimes we get to our 80s before we've got the space to go back to school and get that degree that we always knew we could and that we always knew we really wanted. So just relaxing into the process of life and recognizing that everything is unfolded perfectly to bring you to this point and where you're at. And from this point of conscious awareness and recognition is opportunity. This present moment is the best place that we can be for everything and anything. Anytime we're not in the present moment, we're not in our balanced mind, we're in a reactive state, and we are in a noisy echo chamber. So the more that we can positively disrupt, the more that we can get balanced, centered, and grounded, the more time we can spend in nature, the more that we can quiet the mind, the more that we can hear the signal and figure out what it is that we're good at, figure out what it is that we really like and enjoy and that lights us up on the inside when we think about it. And the best thing you can do outside of a guided process would be to do a positive disruption balance right before going to bed. And then when you're going to bed, float that question. Float the question about what is my natural talent? What's something that I'm really interested in life? And stop thinking. That's another misnomer. We think we need to have the answer. One of the most powerful places to operate from is open and curious. I don't know the answer, but I'm open to the insight that I have a feeling is within. I'm open to the insight and the knowing that is a wellspring within me if I can take the steps to clear out the noise, clear out the junk in the trunk, and connect with that. Yeah, there is no end for learning and growing, 100%. We are in a continual process of expansion and reconciliation and returning home and integrating these different parts and doing some of the hard things, moving through some of those shadows, moving through some of those traumas that we sometimes wear as a badge of honor, or we wear as a weight of shame that we carry with us. And none of them do us any service. None of them do us any good. All right. So I was planning on going for 30, and I'm already coming up on an hour. So if anybody else has any other questions, go ahead and throw those in the comments. And is it actually possible to stop thinking? Probably not altogether. I will say that I really stopped having a lot of the like the drive-by thoughts where we're just having a nice time and all of a sudden we get mowed down by this negative thought on the inside. So what I tell people is I really don't think anymore, but I have very strong knowings and understandings. And so I still dip into some of those negative Nancy thoughts every once in a while. It's funny that earlier this year I was in a little bit of like an eddy where it's just like a looping current for about 6 months, and I wasn't moving forward. I was kind of waiting for things to happen instead of just back on the path of one step at a time. And that's when some kind of negative or self-depreciating thoughts came back in. But I've been practicing regulating my internal state, not controlling, but just kind of regulating the comings and goings, and releasing a lot of the emotional, energetic, experiential trauma that I've experienced. Really quieted the mind down. Overthinking is a symptom of a system that is trying to deliver a message or a signal to us, and we keep ignoring it or we keep not getting it. So then the message keeps getting louder, and it can be mental, physical, spiritual, or emotional states of dis-ease. That is the message that our system communicates through. So I would say yes, it's 100% possible to quiet and for the most part eliminate the lizard brain, monkey mind chatter. It's just a matter of how much are we ready to commit to change, and how much are we ready to move through and release that we've maybe been ignoring or burying or tamping down over a lifetime. So that's my experience with it anyway. I most often find myself in a quiet mind state, and if I don't, oh, interesting. I wonder where that thought came from. So that's really the capacity of shifting into this observer space. So from a dimensional aspect, we have our three-dimensional space, physical, we perceive as physical, even though the majority of this physical system is empty space. So we have three-dimensional, which we perceive as real. The fourth dimensional space is actually the liminal space in your mind body. And most often we access it in a thought or imagination form. So this is where we talked about being non-local. earlier in this live. And the fourth dimensional creator space is the junction that can connect through our fifth dimensional space to our source, through collective consciousness, through the 0-point energy field, to our signal, which can help improve things in our physical reality. So from that standpoint, thoughts are mostly just byproducts of life. About 85% of our thoughts on any given day are going to trend towards negative, which is just a safety trigger. And about 95 to 98% of those thoughts are going to be looping or repetitive of a thought we've had in the past. Our system really likes to reinforce our beliefs and really reinforce our worldviews and our positions because it thinks it's keeping us safe. But what it's really doing is keeping us miserable. It's keeping us attached and enmeshed and resistant to things outside of ourselves, which keeps us just redlining in the game of life, as opposed to recognizing we are that first person player, living life through this avatar of our human form, and have complete control of every aspect of our experience if we're ready to take on the responsibility of that freedom, of releasing the junk in the trunk, moving through the traumas and pains that we accumulate as signposts, as governors of life, getting back to recognizing the true capital U us, capital Y you, and recognizing everyone else is that exact same expression as well. We are all individual expressions of a collective source, in my experience and in my exploration and in my research. And it's my pleasure, Siddharth. Thank you so much. So yeah, it's really an equation of deepening our understanding and our operation within the mind body. And again, it's going to be hyper personal. Even twins are not going to have the exact same expressions of dis-ease, nor insight, awareness, and practice of cultivating greater consciousness, releasing, reducing, or eliminating the negative, the low, which just by proxy allows us to rise individually and collectively. So I'll probably ask a question here in the next little bit on a story. But if we were to do some kind of a free workshop, it does sound like stress and anxiety are probably two of the bigger components, the bigger aspects of life that really knock us off our path, knock us off our track, and really negatively disrupt things in life. So it's about coming back to who we are at our core, which is beyond human and physical definitions. It's beyond the I am. It's getting to the isness of existence. And from that expansive place, recognizing that we control every aspect of our reality. We might not always control what we perceive as things happening outside of ourselves, and we don't have control over anybody else. And as I mentioned, anytime that control is exercised, it can be successful, but only for a certain amount of time. Because we are so individuated, we are so hyper-personalized in these expressions, and we are self-governing. Every single one of us, our natural state is one of peaceful presence, non-attachment, enlightenment. And from that place, we are all our own captain. We are all our own governor. We are all our own. We're all our own self-directed, self-guided expression of reality, expression of humanity. And so from that place, governmental, societal controls really melt away and allow us to all express and explore and become self-realized without impacting anyone else's journey as well. And that's really where the rub comes in, because we think, we need control in order to be free for some reason. But really, freedom is releasing all control and recognizing that we are in co-creation of reality every moment of every second of every day. And from that bleeding edge of consciousness, from that bleeding edge of creatorship, one, there's no wrong moves. Two, there's no timeline. There's no end. There's no finish line to cross. Three, it's just this continual expanding and unfolding and returning to ourselves of reconciling what we've perceived as our only reality for some of us, our entire lives, with the energetic and quantum reality that we actually experience and underlies and imbues everything in the world. And from that place, we are more in a space to practice self-directed, individuated self-leadership, that if all of us are experiencing that, then we are all self-governing. We all have everybody's self-interest at heart, because we aren't experiencing scarcity or fear or anger or abandonment or worthlessness or unlovableness internally, because we've already taken that perceptively more challenging journey internally to connect with that wholeness and those answers that have always been there. So it might run counter to collective wisdom, definitely runs counter to a lot of mainstream medicine, but recognizing that first and foremost, we are energetic. Secondly, we are not these physical forms. We are the animator. We are the spark that energizes these physical forms, and we experience life through them. And we are not only non-local, but we're all connected. If you're in the same room with somebody else, your biome, your electromagnetic field, and your genetic and biological information is being shared with everybody in the room. Our electromagnetic fields extend about 12 to 15 feet in all directions. And so whenever we're in a group setting, there is collective energy being shared. So the more we can be a steward of our internal space and recognize that we are in broadcast every second of every day, then we can start to consciously decide what we want to broadcast, what we choose to broadcast, instead of what we feel like is the only thing we can broadcast, which most of the time is stress, anxiety, fear, comparison, judgment, low self-esteem, low self-worth, second-guessing ourselves. And so it can all feel real big and real heavy, but it is just one step at a time. So getting our inputs cleaned up. What are our physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional inputs from life? We can clean those up. What do we allow to take root within us as far as a thought? Because thought creates reality, thought creates belief, thought creates our where we orient with our outlook on life. So what is the quality of thought that we are allowing and entertaining? And then also, what is the and then the other side of the equation is the collective energy that we're carrying with us based on the trauma we've experienced. So getting rid of that, reducing that load, opens us up to all the rest of the beautiful things in life. So yeah, quantum consciousness training, enlightenment training starts this Sunday, Pacific time, West Coast US, 1 to 3 p.m., Sunday, October 8th. We're going to meet once a week, every Sunday from 1 to 3 p.m. PST. We're going to go through stress transformations. We're going to go through trauma releases. Going to guide through some of the more sticky points in life, and we're going to integrate practices that are going to get us back to that natural state of being, so that we can be more self-governing, so that we can be experience more freedom, experience more peace, experience more resiliency, experience more adaptability to change as one of the only constants in life. So if you're ready to commit to some serious change in your life, please do check out this training course. It will be unlike anything you've ever experienced. We are actually in doing. It's not just lip service. It's not just information. It is going to be a transformative journey. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, link is in the bio, and DM with any questions. And like I said, we launch in just about 3 days. So hopefully see some of you there. Any questions, please reach out. Much love. Have a beautiful week. Have a beautiful weekend. And I hope to your continual expansion and transformation within your own journey. All right. Until next time, have a beautiful day. We'll talk to you soon.